is Mason, and welcome to Mason Zero ASMR. Today I'm going to be going through a deck due to a request from a viewer named Jacob. He commented on my gameplay video of Sophia and I playing a modern game of her blue-green ramp sea creatures deck against my white and green soldiers and tokens deck. He was interested in a deck list for my soldiers deck, and so I decided just to make a whole video dedicated to it. I have one from a while back where I go through the deck, but that was a while ago and it was not in its current form. But the core of it is the same, so if you've seen that one, some of this should be familiar. So starting with the creatures, because they're the most important part, we have 4 copies of Borosalit. It's 1 white for a 1/1 human soldier. Whenever it and at least 2 other creatures attack, it gets +2/+2 till end of turn. This is the best card to play on turn 1, because it gets even better once you get some tokens out. We have 3 Preeminent Captain, 3 mana for a 2/2 Kithkin soldier with first strike. Whenever it attacks, you may put a soldier creature card from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. One of the payoff cards for playing the tribal deck, so it has some synergy with other soldiers, which every creature is a soldier. So that's fun for cheating into play some of the larger 4 and 5 and 6 mana creatures that there are, which there's only a few of. We have a set of 3 Thraben Inspector, 1 mana for a 1/2 human soldier. When it enters the battlefield, investigate. So you get a clue token. This lets us draw cards when we have some extra mana, which normally shouldn't happen, but if the game goes along, it's a way that we can make sure there's some cards going into our hand instead of just having an empty hand the entire time. So 3 of those. We don't want too many, but it's useful to have that extra card draw. And I have 2 Kithion Hero of Akros, 1 white for a 2/1 human soldier, legendary creature. Can pay 2 and a white, and he gains indestructible till end of turn. And then at the end of combat, if him and at least 2 other creatures attacked, you exile him and return him to the battlefield transformed. Then he becomes Gideon Battleforged, Planeswalker. Gideon in the Planeswalker mode gives your creatures a little bit of resiliency, lets you untap and make indestructible something. This deck's pretty aggressive, so that lets you have a indestructible blocker if necessary after attacking with everything. His first ability could let you ram one of your opponent's creatures into Gideon, hopefully into a big blocker that you have, or you can just straight up turn him into a 4/4 creature. So useful and versatile for pretty much everything your deck is trying to do. We have 2 Ballyrush Banneret. It's 1 and a white for a 2/1 Kithkin soldier. Kithkin spells and soldier spells you play cost 1 less to play. Again, every creature is a soldier, so this reduces the cost of all of our creatures by 1. Does not help all of the creatures who have a mana cost of 1 white, unfortunately. Nor does it help this next card, which is Precinct Captain. It's 2 white mana for a 2/2 human soldier with first strike. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you put a 1/1 white soldier creature token on the battlefield. Not one of the stronger cards in the deck, but it definitely keeps pumping out tokens throughout the game, which is the one nice thing. It's relevant at all stages as long as it can get through. And first strike is nice, of course. We have 2 Sigil Captain. It's 1 a green and 2 white for a 3/3 Rhino soldier. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if that creature is 1/1, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So that's pretty nice, as you'll see later for some of our tokens. Not only are a few of our creatures like Borosalit 1/1s, but also all of the tokens we're going to be creating are 1/1s, and having them come in as 3/3s after turn 4, when this could come down, is extremely useful. Makes them much more relevant as the game goes on. We have one copy of Loxodon Smiter. It's 1 a green and a white for a 4/4 elephant soldier. It can't be countered, and if your opponent would cause you to discard it, you put it onto the battlefield instead of into your graveyard. So it's versatile, you know you're always going to get it into play, and if you have to play it normally, it's a good value. Having a 4/4 on turn 3 is not bad. At the top of our curve, we have one copy of Captain of the Watch. It is 6 mana for a 3/3 human soldier with vigilance. Other soldier creatures you control get +1/+1 at vigilance, and you get 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. So if you play Sigil Captain turn 4 and this turn 6 on curve, you will end up having a 3/3 with vigilance, as well as 3 4/4s with vigilance, all for 6 mana. So if that lines up alright, then this can be a crazy card, especially if it comes in off of early off of the preeminent captain, which is the goal. We have a perimeter captain, lots of captains. It is 1 white for a 0/4 human soldier with defender. Whenever a creature you control with defender blocks, you may gain 2 life. It can be a nice early game card to stand up against some attackers. Also lets you get in a little extra life early by blocking, so it might cause your opponent to not even want to attack if they can't get through. So very nice little buffer there. Probably one of the first cards to get sideboarded out, though. We have one copy of Burmaz, King of Oriskos. It's 1 and 2 white for a 3/4 legendary creature cat soldier. He has vigilance. Whenever he attacks or blocks a creature, or whenever he attacks, and whenever he blocks a creature, you put a 1/1 white cat soldier creature token with vigilance onto the battlefield, attacking or blocking depending on what you're doing. So a token creator and really good value. Next we have Hodrick, Master Tactician, 2 and 2 white for a 3/4 legendary creature, human soldier, with first strike. Whenever he and at least 3 other creatures attack, you choose which creatures block this combat and how those creatures block. Another nice creature for late in the game. If you have a lot of creatures and you can attack with them, you can choose for none of your opponent's creatures to block, and then you just get through with everything and hopefully win. Thalia, Heretic Cathar is 2 and a white for a 3/2 legendary creature, human soldier, with first strike. Creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. This is super crazy for Modern, where everyone's playing a lot of non-basic lands, such as shock lands and fast lands and stuff like that, so to have them come in tapped is pretty devastating. And then a 3/2 first strike is nice, especially when you're being super aggressive and your opponent's blockers come down and come in tapped. So that's all for creatures. For non-creature spells, we start off with the obvious, which is 4 copies of Raise the Alarm, 2 mana for an instant, put 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield. It's what you ideally want on turn 2. It could also be used defensively since it's an instant. 4 copies of Launch the Fleet, which is part of our win condition, which I'll go through at the end. It's 1 white mana for a sorcery with Strive. Costs 1 generic more to cast for each target beyond the first. Until end of turn, any number of target creatures each gain whenever this creature attacks. Put a 1/1 white soldier creature token onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. So, very good. When we have a ton of creatures, we can basically duplicate those. We have 2 copies of Great Teacher's Decree, which is kind of a weird card, but it's 3 and a white for a sorcery. Creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn, and it has Rebound, so you get to cast it at the beginning of your next upkeep for free. This card is also part of the ideal win on turn 4 scenario, which I'll go through, but definitely a non-traditional choice that I don't think anyone else is doing. We have 1 Path to Exile, because that's all I can afford. It's 1 white mana for an instant, remove target creature from the game. Its controller may search his or her library for a basic land card, put that card into play tapped, then shuffle his or her library. It's pretty great creature removal. My backup to Path to Exile is Reciprocate. It's 1 white mana for an instant, remove from the game target creature that dealt damage to you this turn. It's basically a more conditional Path to Exile that doesn't have a downside. So, in exchange for Path to Exile giving your opponent a basic land, this allows you to not have to have your opponent gain anything, but it has to be a creature that already dealt damage to you, which shouldn't be too hard. We have 2 enchantments. Honor of the Pure is 1 and a white for an enchantment that says white creatures you control get +1/+1. Generally good, buff up everything. And then Wild Defiance combos with the Launch the Fleet. Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of an instant or sorcery spell, that creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. It is 2 and a green for an enchantment with that effect. It's also nice because it doesn't have to be a spell you control. If your opponent targets something and doesn't kill it, then it just makes that creature bigger. So, this is pretty nice. One of the reasons for the green splash. Then we have 2 copies of Elspeth, Sun's Champion. She's a 6 mana planeswalker with 4 loyalty. Her +1 is put 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens on the battlefield. -3 is destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater. And -7 is you get an emblem with creatures you control, get +2/+2, and have flying. So getting 3 more tokens is nice. Destroying large creatures is nice. All of our creatures should generally be power 4 or greater, or 4 or less. So this will kill everything that our opponents control if they have anything big. Lastly, we have the lands. We have a bunch of basic planes. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 basic planes. 1 basic forest. 2 fetch lands in the form of Windswept Heath. A Temple Garden. And 2 Sunpetal Grove. I will be putting in Canopy Vista from Battle for Zendikar at some point, but they're currently in a deck. But I think once Kaladesh comes out and Standard rotates, I won't be playing Bant Spirits anymore, so I'll be able to take that land and put it into this deck for Modern. So now we move on to the sideboard, which is still a little bit under construction. We have 4 copies of Dryad Militant. It's a 2/1 for 1 green or 1 white. It's a Dryad Soldier. If an instant or sorcery card would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile instead. That can help against some certain strategies. We have 2 Core Skyfisher for help against flying. It's 2 mana for a 2/3 Core Soldier with flying. When it enters the battlefield, return a permanent you control to its owner's hand. Usually a tapped land will work fine. We're pretty light on land in this deck, so we shouldn't have a ton of land in our hand anyways. So that should be okay. And if we're facing some flyers, it's worth it. I have 1 Tormod's Crypt. It's a 0 mana artifact. Tap it and sacrifice it to exile all cards from target player's graveyard. Good if our opponent's playing a graveyard strategy, and do this at just the right time. We have 2 Banishing Light. It is a 3 mana enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. So it can temporarily deal with planeswalkers, creatures, enchantments, anything like that. There's a lot of enchantment removal they could sideboard in, but this is our sideboard cards. Hopefully it'll catch them by surprise. With some nice non-creature removal in white. We have 2 Elite Inquisitor on the off chance that we're played against vampires, zombies, or werewolves. It's 2 mana for a 2/2 human soldier with first strike and vigilance. Has protection from vampires, werewolves, and zombies. So, if that happened to be relevant, it's a good card. It's already good. 2/2 with first strike and vigilance for 2. Can't complain about that. We have 1 Loyal Sentry. It's a 1 mana 1/1 human soldier. When it blocks a creature, destroy that creature and Loyal Sentry. It's sort of a blocker against a large creature that someone might be scared to attack into this. At the very least, it'll be a removal target. Someone has something like a Blightsteel Colossus, they're probably going to be scared to attack into this. Core Firewalker is for burn decks. It's a 2/2 for 2 white core soldier. Protection from red. Whenever a player casts a red spell, you may gain 1 life. Pretty standard white sideboard card. Then this is good for against decks that put a lot of stuff into the graveyard. It's a 4/4 for 2 giant soldier. As a cumulative upkeep, put 2 cards in a single graveyard on the bottom of their owner's library. So we don't put much stuff into our graveyard, but if our opponents do, they're playing some sort of dredge or some other deck that just plays a lot of stuff. This would be great for getting out something big really early. So that's the sideboard, and you already saw the main deck. I have all my soldier tokens here. Clue for Thraben Inspector, some cat soldiers, Elspeth, Emblem. So that is the deck. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope that if you are looking for this deck list or deck that it was valuable. If you have any suggestions, let me know. This is mostly budget, just a few more expensive cards that I've collected along the way. So the end goal is to trade into those other cards that'll make the deck even better. So hope you all enjoyed it and are nice and relaxed either way. I will see you in the next video.